In the 1950s, Wisconsinite Leonard Getzinger designed one of the first successful mechanical harvesters. The hand-pushed Getzinger picker uses retractable metal teeth to comb through the vines and pick berries. Up until the 1970s, the majority of all cranberries were sold as fresh fruit for traditional cooking.
During the 1970s and 1980s, the juice market exploded, and the demand for cranberry juice far exceeded the demand for fresh cranberries. The whole industry shifted from fresh fruit to processed fruit.
Most farmers began wet harvesting with beaters to bring in a larger, yet less carefully handled crop. But one man feels there is still a better mousetrap for farmers who raise cranberries for processing. It's called the Ruby Slipper.
It's a machine I started working on it about 7 years ago, trying to find a simpler, faster method to harvest cranberries that was easier on the fruit, easier on the vines. This is a lot gentler. The bar itself is traveling at a slower speed when it contacts the vine, but the ground speed of the machine is a lot faster.
The Ruby Slipper is pulled through the marsh and requires no moving parts to remove the cranberries. Regardless of the machine, harvesting cranberries for juice or craisins is not a gentle affair. But there's another harvest, more steeped in tradition, that demands a more delicate touch. Habelman Brothers in Tomah, Wisconsin is the world's largest producer of fresh cranberries. This harvest is all about delivering the perfect berry. Habelman's harvesters utilize stainless steel teeth to comb the vines, much like the original Getzinger pickers. But these more gentle modern harvesters use a series of paddles to free the berries from the vines.
The berries never end up back in the water. They go right into the boats and then into the trucks. We can do about 10 acres a day with the two machines that we're using right now.
When it's time for packing, the berries go through a separator line to remove discolored and poor quality berries. At the front end is an antique device that has never been upgraded or redesigned, the Bailey separator. Invented by the H.R. Bailey Company in 1917, it was conceived with the idea that only fresh cranberries will bounce.
So they pass through a series of boards. Good ones jump and land on a finish belt. The bad ones just kind of filter down the machine. And a lot of companies have tried to come up with a better design, but there isn't any out there yet.
The cranberries that pass Bailey's test are then double-checked by more modern equipment. Two different electronic separators use ultraviolet and fluorescent light to detect inferior color and rot. After the antique and high-tech separators have their go, the final quality check is human. Any bad berries that have survived the gauntlet are weeded out before packaging. As the demand for healthier food and drink continues to spiral, a wild assortment of cranberry harvesting machines will continue to prowl the marshes of central Wisconsin. But picking berries in the Midwest autumn at low altitude is a picnic compared to a hot, dangerous head-in-the-clouds harvest, where one mistake could be fatal. In the low desert of Southern California's Coachella Valley, there's an annual ritual that is perhaps the most dangerous harvest in America. This man is a palmero. His job is to harvest dates from trees that can grow to heights of more than 80 feet. Date grower Dennis Jensen speaks of the industry's anxiety over the latter harvest.
It's dangerous work up there. One slip and they could end up in a world of hurt. As much as we try safety-wise, it seems that every other year we lose someone to this terrible tragedy. Some of the other items that are very dangerous are the spines, the palm fronds themselves that can pierce your hand or an eye or an arm or a leg or foot. And they're located throughout the crown of that tree, so there's a lot of different dangers that they have to work with.
The palmeros in this field are hand harvesting a premium date, known as the medjool, one of several date varieties that have been cultivated since before recorded time. Dates are likely the oldest of all harvested fruits. Nearly 6,000 years ago, they were cultivated in the region of Mesopotamia, or what is now modern Iraq. Some traditions trace the fruit to the Garden of Eden.
Even the Bible refers to the land of milk and honey, and we've been told by Jewish scholars that the honey it was referring to was the honey of the date palms.
Its ability to grow and produce fruit in such an arid environment made the date palm a sacred tree.
Dates keep very well, and in that hot desert area where they had no refrigeration, they could keep them for a long time. And early on, they discovered the ways to press them together to get rid of air and so forth so that they would keep.
After many failed attempts, date palm offshoots were successfully imported and planted in the Arizona desert in the year 1900. The coveted medjool offshoots came from Morocco in 1927 and were later planted in the Coachella Valley. Today, California growers of medjools and the other major variety, the Deglet Nor, oversee a thriving industry that annually harvests a crop worth around $50 million. But times are changing for the skilled palmeros. Most date growers are relying less on the ladder harvest and more on a mechanical harvesting aid, the canasta. Mounted on a 9-ton lift, the platform opens and closes around the date palm's trunk. Even as mechanization makes the work safer and easier, the job still requires a trained palmero to distinguish dates that are ripe for picking.
Normally what they're going to do is they'll be looking for the ripest ones, and they're pretty easy to pull off. And sometimes you can just shake them and they'll actually fall off of the bunches. But they'll be pulling out the ripe ones, which are the darker color ones. There's yellow ones on here, which are not ripe yet. It'll take another probably 2 to 3 weeks before they will ripen up.
Prior to harvesting, the palmeros wrap each and every growing date bunch in a nylon bag.
Our date bags are used to keep moisture away from the dates should we have a sudden thunderstorm, and the rain and moisture causes a lot of decay for the dates. Additional purposes of these bags are to keep insects away and to keep birds from eating the dates.
To prevent damage to the delicate fruit, harvesters lower small baskets to the ground, where they're hand sorted for ripeness. After a short journey to Dennis Jensen's Seaview packing house, the dates are cooled. Then they're carefully washed and dried before they're hand sorted for packing. One of 5 quality categories are assigned before the dates are shipped to points around the world. While dates are harvested in scorching 100-degree sunlight, there's another crop that prefers the cool darkness of the world's largest underground fungus farm. Deep within the rolling hills near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, directly beneath the trees and pasture land, more than 800 acres of limestone tunnels play host to the world's largest mushroom farm. At Creekside Mushrooms, more than 150 miles of tunnels in a former limestone mine are a fungus farmer's dream.
The neat thing about growing mushrooms at this particular facility is that The temperature is pretty much consistent all year round. And we maintain about a 62-degree temperature all year round and about a 95% humidity, which allows mushrooms to just recycle themselves pretty much every 24 hours.
Creekside's fungus of choice is the sylvan white agaricus, the ever-popular white button mushroom. Each day, a small army of harvesters speeds from one cave to the next. Each worker aiming to pick a minimum of 55 pounds per hour. The mushrooms are grown in and harvested from large wooden trays. Each tray is harvested in passes, or breaks. The first break yields the large and medium mushrooms. Removing the larger fungi allows more room for the smaller mushrooms to grow and develop.
I'm picking the mushrooms that are ready at the prime time for harvest, and that depends upon the stem length, the shape of the cap, whether it's domed or oval. If you notice, the only smalls that I take are the ones that come off basically by accident. They're left on there for tomorrow. There'll be mushrooms that will be harvested again tomorrow.
Each tray ultimately yields approximately 250 pounds of organic mushrooms. But not every mushroom is perfect.
This mushroom in particular has a blemish on it. That is what we consider a number 2. It would not look as nice when it hits the supermarket.
The popular white agaricus mushroom was first domesticated in the cellars and sewers of 19th century France. The process of producing the spawn, or seed, was the key to growing the fungus commercially. After the French perfected a strain of spawn, it was soon exported to England, and ultimately to the United States. The mushroom business took off in 1904, when the United States Department of Agriculture perfected a domestically bred spawn, one of the very same strains that are used today. Even with a healthy spawn, profitably growing mushrooms in vast numbers is a very demanding craft. The process begins with piles of hay, straw, and manure. At Creekside Mushrooms, this compost is turned, adding water and fresh air to speed up decomposition. The compost is then pasteurized in a fresh air tunnel system.
It kills all the other microorganisms that are in the compost so that when we do plant the spawn or the mushroom seeds into the tray, it gives a nice clean medium for the spawn to take hold inside the compost.
Each tray is filled with compost and the spawn is then added. The trays are transported deep in the pitch-dark limestone caves to begin coaxing the root structure, or mycelium, to the surface. This tray of organic white agaricus will begin harvesting around day 15. Its mini mushrooms travel to Creekside's packaging facility, where they're weighed, packaged, or sometimes sliced before they're cooled and quickly shipped to market.
We don't get a whole lot of lead time, nor do we want a whole lot of lead time, because what we produce today, we want to make sure we ship within the next 24 hours.
While the mushroom harvest may seem stable, its future is not.
People that get out of high school today look for other opportunities, so it gets harder and harder to find labor. Labor holds us back from expanding. Right now, we grow about 20, 26 million pounds. We'd like to be 30, 35, but our restraint is we can't get labor to get us to where we want to be.
Creekside's mushrooms are not the only crop impacted by a lack of labor. The trend is affecting harvests across the nation.
There's certainly less labor available. It began several years ago, but the increased pressure to reduce illegal immigration across the southern United States border has influenced the amount of laborers that are available for harvest.
As workers become scarcer, Mechanization will play a larger, but probably still restricted role in the harvest.
Labor is the most important factor in this business. When you look at the fragility or the nature of the fruit, this is not something that is conducive to mechanical harvesting. We rely very heavily on a labor force that's skilled to discern fruit quality on the tree, and there's really no other way to go about doing that.
Surely our machines will become more sophisticated and sensitive, and a declining labor force will spur that mechanical innovation. But only time will tell if the machine will ever match the human hand's ability to delicately pluck at unblemished